So I prepared this one specifically for you guys. I called it for mental health workers because that's what we all are here, in one way or another. Or yeah, and particularly you'll see that I've got a few slides comparing sort of like differences and the similarities between SST and TRE, which will be particularly interesting here. And sorry, I find this really weird to not see you guys, so I'm just going to put this back. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, let me just get into it. And then at the end, if we have any questions, we'll leave them. We'll see how the timing is going. But probably after the shake, you might have some questions. So, all right. So TRE stands for, or initially stood for trauma release exercises. And over the years, they've added in tension because not everybody identifies with the word trauma. And then stress also. So it's sort of like we've got these like three dimensions to kind of appeal to different people in different contexts. Here I put the three because I think they're all equally important. So what is TRE? So TRE is tension, trauma, and stress releasing exercises, and it regulates the autonomic nervous system through involuntary movement. You'll see as we go through that it's more than just regulating the autonomic nervous system, because it's actually working through using the body's innate tremoring mechanism, so spontaneous movement, to release tension and trauma that are stored in the tissues. So it's not just about kind of like vagus nerve stimulation in the moment, but it's actually releasing things that are deeply held in the body since childhood. And even sometimes there's birth stuff that can come up too. So, so I wanted to start with this short video, which is made by David Berceli, who's the creator of TRE, just to give you a little bit of an idea of, to give you a little bit of an idea of what it is, but also really to point out that this tremoring mechanism is innate to all mammals. It's something that belongs to you, belongs to your body, and it's your birthright. So this is a little video, and I just want to little sort of not warning, but just to show you, you're going to see people's bodies shaking, and the ones that are in this video are quite intense. You can probably expect that today in your first shaking session, it's not going to be this intense. So just, everybody's body is a snowflake. We're all different. And it takes a while for the tremoring mechanism to start moving up the body. So today you'll probably expect to have, a little bit of gentle tremors in the lower body, and it might just be that. So just so you know, because you'll see what the video is here. So I'll just let you listen to this. How do I do it? There we go. I love that video because it just really shows, it's showing the animals releasing, it's showing humans releasing. And I love these videos where, with the cat on the person, or the one with the father with his baby. It's really beautiful. So just for those of you who have families, just know that you can practice TRE with your family, and it's actually a really great way to, let's say, like harmonize the energy between the different family members. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a historical context about shaking, because TRE is one approach to shaking, but really shaking practices have existed since the dawn of humanity. So there are many cultures around the world that have shaking practices, and that have had them for a really long time, including the Kalahari Bushmen of Africa, who are supposedly the oldest existing, or like continuously existing, indigenous tribe in the world, who actually use this shaking practice in groups. They've used it forever. They still use it now. The Squaxin tribe of Puget Sound, the Shakers, so more Christian tradition. Kundalini yoga accesses this natural involuntary movement. Umbanda cults of Brazil. There's also this thing of the shaking tents in indigenous North American cultures, which is not necessarily the person shaking, but the tents are shaking. Anyway, there's this mechanism of shaking is not something that's new. It's not something that David Berceli invented. This is something that is so deeply held within the human and the mammalian body. So I thought it was interesting to give you a little bit of a context there. Different uses and ways of practicing. So historically, these practices have been used not only for healing purposes, but also for divine connection. So it's possible to access really deep states of unity, of well-being. So it's not just about like releasing trauma, releasing stress, but it can actually go much deeper. And oftentimes, or let's say most of the time, it's been practiced in groups. So and there are different ways of accessing it. So you can access it by like rhythmic drumming, by dancing, and even the way the Kalahari Bushmen access it is they'll have a shaman who starts shaking themselves through maybe the rhythmic drumming or something, and then they will, once they have the shaking mechanism activated in their body, they actually transmit it to somebody else through touch. It's super, super interesting. You can actually watch videos on this on YouTube. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of like the different paradigms of healing that have been around. So for quite a long time, we've had this relaxation response paradigm. This was brought about by Dr. Herbert Benson, who proposed that relaxation and stillness bring forth healing, which is true, but it's only part of the truth. So there's a new paradigm. I'm reading this book, amazing book called Shaking Medicine by Bradford Keeney. And I just want to underline everything that he writes in there. But he talks about all these different traditions of shaking across the world. And so he says a new paradigm for medicine includes both arousal and relaxation as necessary co-components for the fullest realization of the healing response. It's time for the shaking body to become as familiar as the quiet body. So in our, let's say, at least now, like in Western society, and since the 60s and 70s, when the transcendental meditation movement kind of like brought meditation to the West, and there was all these studies that started happening in different universities about how meditation, relaxation are really good for the nervous system. They're really good for general health in all different dimensions of health and well-being. But there's also this other dimension that's been that's existed since the beginning of time, but that's been kind of pushed aside, partly because of religious beliefs. And so like in the Shakers used to have these like sort of ecstatic dancing and shaking practices, and the church kind of starts to look at those as maybe diabolical or cultish or I don't know what, and starts to want to control that and push it to the side. And so we've now in our society come to think of shaking as something that is actually pathological, but it's really a misunderstanding of what that shaking mechanism is. So that brings me to the origins of TRE. So TRE is a trauma-informed self-help practice approach to this shaking mechanism that was originally designed for large-scale trauma relief. So this particular approach to shaking was designed by Dr. David Berceli. He is an American who was living and working in the North Africa and the Middle East, and he was an expert or is an expert, he's still alive, in the areas of trauma intervention and conflict resolution. And what happened is basically he, while he was living there, he was in Lebanon during the war. This was in the, I think, late 80s, early 90s. And he made two really interesting observations. Sorry for these images. I made them with AI because I couldn't find appropriate images. So I think they're all right. But anyway, so basically when a bomb went off one day, I think it was in a store, I don't know where he was. A bomb went off and he noticed that everybody, including himself, simultaneously made this same crouching position. So that crouching position is what happens in the body when there's a danger. It needs to protect its vital organs, right? So that's like a natural movement that the body makes. So he observed that and he was like, oh, that's interesting. It didn't matter how old the people were, what their sex, their gender, their race, their religion, their background, whatever. Everybody made the same movement. The other observation that he made was he was in a bomb shelter with a bunch of people, all again of all backgrounds and ages and whatever. And in this bomb shelter, you had adults, teenagers, and children. And the adults all had children sitting on their lap, and he had two kids sitting on his lap, and he had his hands on their backs. And after the bomb went off, he noticed that the children were trembling, they were shaking. And when he looked around, he noticed that most of the adults were not shaking. And amongst the teenagers, some were shaking, some weren't shaking. So he was like, oh, this is interesting. And he actually questioned the adults. Was like, why aren't you shaking? He's a very incredible man, very such a big curiosity for the human like experience, let's say. So anyway, so he asked the adults, why aren't you shaking? And a lot of the adults said, well, we didn't want children to know that we were afraid, right? And so this is this kind of, you can see sort of like we've been socialized into inhibiting this shaking mechanism because we think that this is going to give away, like what we're feeling. We think that somehow it's pathological. We think that, it's not good. We have to hide it. And so, but what's interesting is that he didn't actually put together these two observations. He didn't like make the connection between them for about 5 years. So I just wanted to put this here because basically what happened with him was he ended up having PTSD from having been exposed to all these war conditions. And he spent 5 years in therapy, talk therapy. And after about 5 years, he said to his therapist, look, I understand what happened to me mentally, but I feel that there's something wrong in my body still that doesn't feel right. So his therapist pointed him towards body-based therapies. And at that time, it was bioenergetics. So bioenergetics comes out of Willem Reich, who is the first body-based therapist who had this idea of the 7 belts of tension through the body. It's like, I don't remember them all, the ocular belt, I don't have all the names, but you can look it up. There's like a diagram. So out of that first kind of like body-based therapy came bioenergetics. Alexander Lowen, I believe he was a student of Willem Reich, and he created bioenergetics, which is also using different movements in the body. So when David started taking bioenergetic therapy, he experienced this tremoring mechanism in his own body. And then it was only at that time when he made this connection between the two. And he was like, oh, okay, I get it. So basically, he understood that once the body goes into this, like, basically, it's like if the body has this protective mechanism, so going into this crouching position or whatever, it then therefore necessarily also has a mechanism to bring it back into homeostasis after the danger has passed. And so this is my my feeble attempt at making a photo of a kid trembling. You can't really take a photo of a kid trembling, but basically that's it. So you've got this protective mechanism here on the left with the man crouched into a ball. Then the body trembles to bring itself back into homeostasis. And once that is has been, let's say, worked out of the body, then here we can see, this child accessing joy, peace, and well-being. So that's sort of my maybe not so amazing attempt at showing that with photos, but yeah. So that was like a really important understanding for him. So basically, here you guys are, most of you familiar with the polyvagal theory. So just to let you know, like David Berceli made these observations through experience in these like harsh conditions. But at the time, I'm not even sure if polyvagal theory was written yet. Years later, David was at a conference, I believe in Norway, a conference for chiropractors. And he gave a presentation of TRE and he demonstrated, he had people tremor on stage. And Stephen Porges was at that conference, and right after the conference, Stephen came up to David and he's like, I think I understand what went on here. And so he explained it through the polyvagal lens. So these days when we take the TRE training, they put a lot of emphasis on explaining polyvagal theory and like understanding it that way. So for those of you here, I'm not sure, maybe I'm gonna look at you guys again because I can't see you. Is anybody here not familiar with the polyvagal theory? Just put up a hand if you need a little bit of a refresher. We're all good? Okay. So, so basically, like, I'm not sure you guys, how you explain polyvagal theory or how you present it. We use the polyvagal curve. So I know that some people use the ladder model and other people use the like window of tolerance model. In TRE, we're shown this polyvagal curve, and I like this because it's kind of like showing the social engagement part at the bottom, and then these two, let's say, protective states where we have as things start to amp up in, like, let's say danger or perceived danger, we're going up the curve into fight or flight, and then when that is perceived as too much for the body to handle, or for that let's say that state to be able to help us through or get us to safety, then we go into freeze, right? So it's like we're going up the curve. So how we can understand TRE through this is basically when we are like after we've been in a dangerous situation, the body has to go back through this activation. Sorry, hang on. To get itself down. So basically, like when we're tremoring, you'll see that we're getting the body activated. So we're going through this like shaking, which is really different from being at total rest, right? So we're going into this activation, but we can think of that as actually coming down the curve. So important not to think of that as coming up this left side of the curve, because it gives a misunderstanding as to what the tremors are doing, and can cause people be kind of like afraid of the tremor. So as the body gets activated, we're not going up and bringing ourselves into freeze or going, whatever, but we're actually, it's actually like a grounding mechanism. Yeah, so I just thought that was an important thing to say, because this is something that's not really like explained well in the TRE training. I've learned a ton since I've finished the TRE training, and doing advanced trainings and just working with other providers and stuff. So super important to understand this, because it can just help you, let's say, trust the body. I mean, your body is has an intelligence, it knows how to heal itself, and so important that we can create that relationship with ourselves where we're trusting ourselves and we're trusting our body that it knows how to heal us. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how this is going to be helpful for, particularly for people who are working in mental health care. And so, obviously here are just like showing some of the different types of trauma that you guys are all aware of. So chronic trauma, this is when we're, exposed regularly to stressful events. Acute trauma, so this is like kind of big T trauma where we've got war or sexual assault or some kind of violent thing, or maybe an accident or whatever. Vicarious trauma, so this one is important for us here. So vicarious trauma is when we're hearing about other people's trauma constantly. Collective trauma, very relevant right now, just because of what's happening. I mean, always relevant, but particularly right now, particularly for you guys in the States. Medical trauma, this can be just from a medical procedure, and that can be, trauma because, like, let's say more in the like psychological part of it, where maybe we go to the hospital and we're not being treated well by the nurses and the doctors, and people are kind of like not really taking care of us in that way. But it can also be really the physical trauma. So if you have an operation, whether or not you were under anesthetic, let's say you're under anesthetic and you have no awareness of the operation and everybody treated you fine, but your body still went under a trauma, right? So your body was still opened up. It's not supposed to be, in quotes, opened up like that, right? So the body has that and carries it. And so there'll be a necessity to release that after. And those of you who've given birth, you may have experienced the body shaking afterwards. And this is the body releasing all the stress from the birthing process. So developmental trauma, obviously, and racial or gender-based trauma, and there are more. But so I thought that the relevant ones here in this conversation, well, I left in racial or gender-based because of your particular, like the makeup of Heartspace in terms of who is working there, but also in terms of who you're supporting. So I just wanted to just include that there, but mostly for mental health care workers, we're talking about chronic because we are constantly being exposed to stress. Vicarious, because we're taking on or like hearing about other people's trauma. And then, obviously right now, I wanted to leave in collective. So I thought these were sort of the most relevant ones for you guys here. So the benefits for mental health care workers. So TRE is a practice, first of all. So this is something that you're going to have, once you learn it, you can use it for the rest of your life. So having a regular nervous system practice can really help prevent burnout. It can increase your resiliency to stress, prevent overwhelm, discharge vicarious trauma, and increase your capacity to create safety for your clients, which will allow your clients to go deeper in their process. So the more grounded you are, the more your system is regulated, the better the better a co-regulator you're going to be, and the clients will detect that through neuroception. So they will be able to hear it in your voice, see it in your face, see it in your body language when you're grounded and you have a large capacity to hold the space for them. TRE can also obviously reduce anxiety, improve symptoms, improve or relieve symptoms of depression, improve sleep, increase ability to focus, improve relationships, relieve physical tension. It's great for sports recovery. So there are athletes who will use this, even Olympic athletes who use TRE to like release the tension that's held in their muscles. And as I said earlier, this is a self-care practice that you have for life. So just a little, you can see here in these benefits, like there's a lot of things that it has in common with the SSP. They're both nervous system regulation practices or methods, let's say. The difference, well, I'll get to the differences in a minute. But anyway, so I just wanted to point out those, like this idea of preventing burnout, increasing resiliency to stress, preventing overwhelm, discharging vicarious trauma, super important in when we are holding space for people who are going through stressful things. So TRE can be practiced anywhere that you feel safe. So for therapists, counselors, and anybody whose job it is to hold space for people, TRE can be really useful because it can be used in short spurts between your appointments, or daily at the end of your shift. And even a 1 to 2 minute shake can help discharge the stress and trauma that your system has absorbed from your clients, or if you've had a stressful interaction with the clients. I know some of you have had some difficult clients, so that can be really helpful to get that out of your system, so you're not carrying that on, and so that you can continue to be grounded and hold space well for your other clients. So this it goes a long way to help reduce the pressure that's built up in your ANS, and helps reduce any sense of overwhelm, and yeah, definitely helps to prevent burnout. So in my humble opinion, all people who are working in any care profession should have a regular nervous system regulation practice for their own well-being, but also for their clients. So just a few notes about the differences and similarities between TRE and SSP. So, and I'm not, I just want to point out, I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. These are just the differences that I see. And then you can, yeah. So basically TRE is a self-care practice, whereas with SSP, you need to have a subscription to the SSP. TRE was developed as a grassroots movement. So TRE was really developed as a tool to be able to help people have a way to release their trauma. It was designed for in basically like large scale big T trauma events, so wars, natural disasters. It was really used since the beginning, spread through, let's say, a lot of countries who are undergoing war and natural disasters, because in those particular situations, there's no way to have one therapist per person who's traumatized, right? And so it was really important to have a way to reach a large amount of people at once. So it was developed, David Bercela developed it as a self-help tool. And I agree that it's a self-help tool, with the caveat that also when we're talking about populations like here in North America, where our, let's say our social fabric is less strong, people are more isolated, practicing TRE in communities isn't really a thing. We don't really have that kind of like community support built in here. So and then there's a lot of like developmental trauma, kids growing up with only one parent, or all that kind of stuff. So when we have that kind of like early childhood trauma, lack of kids who never learned how to self-regulate because they didn't have any good co-regulators when they were kids, for all of those situations, I would say that it's important to have a provider at the beginning to help establish yourself in TRE and get to learn it and get the most out of it. So the SSP was developed. It's a research-based design, basically, and so it's like a human design developed by Stephen Porges and his team. So very different origins, but with a lot of the same applications, I would say. So TRE is releasing the muscle and fascia tension, whereas the SSP was originally designed to target sound sensitivity issues and is mostly stimulating the vagus nerve and working with that. So really two different pathways to get to a more regulated nervous system. TRE is innate to the human body. SSP relies on technology. TRE can be practiced alone, with a provider, or in a group. SSP they prefer people to work with a provider, but either way, you're reliant on having to buy the subscription. TRE, once you've learned it, it's free. So that's really important in terms of accessibility. SSP has ongoing costs if you want ongoing access. So another couple differences is that TRE, so because TRE is body-based approach, I have had clients who felt intimidated to start with TRE because these are people who are afraid of their body. So people with a lot of dissociation have had a lot of physical or sexual abuse, for example, who are afraid of their feelings, afraid to feel like they are not comfortable going into their body quite so early. So for some people, it can be more appropriate to start with SSP because it feels like this is more a passive approach and just listening to music. So it can be more palatable for some clients. For some clients, TRE can also be difficult because of like the pain that they have in their body. So I've got a client with fibromyalgia who any position that she's in, if she's holding it for more than a couple of minutes, it's painful. So, you know, for her, working with the SSP might be a little bit more easy to start out to get a little bit of regulation of her nervous system first before moving on to something more body-based somatic. People with chronic fatigue syndrome also might just not have the energy to get themselves to do something physical like TRE. So SSP can be a really great alternative in those cases. So as I said before, TRE was designed for large-scale trauma, so war and natural disasters. It's been used for frontline workers, mental health workers, individuals suffering from insomnia, anxiety, PTSD, depression, etc. Athletes, as I said before, and even spiritual practitioners. It's becoming more and more widely used in spiritual circles these days, especially in the non-dual. I don't know if you guys are into this stuff, but anyway. So being talked about a lot in the non-duality world. So just a few photos of places where David Berselli and other TRE providers have worked with groups, with TRE in groups. So Sudan war survivors, children in the China earthquake, US military. So this is our militaries and also Army veterans. The fire department in Warsaw, Poland. And then here's one in Canada, the Canada Counseling Center for mental health workers. So, okay, so I'm getting to the end of the presentation part. So here, just to let you know how is TRE practiced. So basically TRE was designed as a set of 7 exercises that gently fatigue and stretch the muscles in order to trigger the body's tremoring mechanism. When I teach it, I don't teach all the 7 exercises. The reason why I don't is because basically the exercises are there to kind of remind you how to let your body tremor and let's say stimulate the tremoring mechanism, even though if you actually observe your body, the body's never still. Unless we're dead, there's always some kind of pulsation or vibration or something happening in the body. So it's really about tuning into that and allowing that to let's say grow. So it's not about making it do anything that it's not already doing. It's just about allowing it to release in a little more of an emphasized way, let's say. So you can think of it a little bit like these exercises. You can think of them a little bit as if all your life, every time you wanted to yawn, somebody told you, close your mouth. And then one day somebody saw you were about to yawn and they're like, oh, you can just open your mouth. So then you open your mouth and your body's like, oh, I can yawn. That's kind of what's happening here. So it's sort of, we're doing a few exercises and then suddenly the body starts tremoring and it's like, oh, I can do this. It's kind of fascinating. But anyway, so the reason why I don't teach all of the exercises is just because it makes it very long to get into the tremoring process. And for me, the most important thing is that people practice this. So this is a practice. This isn't like a one and done therapy, as you guys know, like SSP. It's not something that you listen to once and then you're done. So TRE is going to be working out the tension patterns in the body gradually and in its own way and its own process over a matter of, a couple years or whatever. And TRE is a practice that's going to be long-term too. So once we've kind of discharged most of the tension and trauma that's been held in the body since childhood, life doesn't stop. Life continues. We have stress at work. We've got relationship stress, money stress, all the collective trauma stuff. All that stuff keeps going. So having TRE as a practice, more as like a maintenance practice after you discharge the majority of what you've been holding in the body, can be really helpful to just not accumulate more. And on that note, also just to say that whatever you release from the body is gone. So we're not starting over every time we restart a new TRE session. We're picking up, the body will pick up from where it left off. And so you'll see it starting to evolve and move through the body in different ways. So things that you can expect during a session, during the movements itself, or the practice itself are, you can have shaking, you can have trembling, you can have a sensation of pulsation, vibration. It can be kind of like the body looks like it's kind of stretching involuntarily. This is a fascial movement, so it's working out these tensions that are held in the fascia. So basically, like, we use the word tremoring, but you can just think of it as involuntary movement. So I'll get into it a little bit more in a second. So I just wanted to share this quote with you here from Bradford Keeney. You're being introduced to the shaking medicine, the oldest and newest cure on earth. Yeah, I just love this quote because it's been forgotten and pushed aside for so long, and it's now becoming more and more known and widely accepted that this is a very natural and gentle way to heal ourselves. So I'm going to stop screen sharing because I think I'm done. Oh yeah, I just have I'll share you the presentation at the end, but I've got some resources and websites. So this book by David Berceli is amazing, The Revolutionary Trauma Release Process. The book that Bradford Keeney, Shaking Medicine, super interesting. And then there's some websites and videos, YouTube channels that I highly recommend checking out if this resonates with you and is interesting to you. So there you go. Okay, so maybe what we'll do is maybe we have time. Does anybody have any questions or anything, comments before we take a break and move into the, yes? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh boy. My only question was, can you do too much in one session? Like, I'm comparing it to like SSP, I'm thinking about. Is
absolutely.
that
Yeah. So it's the same. You can think of it in the same way as SSP, like in the way you work with it. So today is going to be the first time for everybody here practicing TRE. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be eliciting the tremoring mechanism, but then we're going to take a break. And then we're going to come back into it and take a break. And what that is going to do is it's going to help create some safety in the nervous system, because you can think of it like all your life, you've been telling your body what to do, and you've been telling it no most of the time. And today we're starting a new conversation with the body where we are allowing it and giving it full permission to express. But what happens is that since it's been all its life going like, I'm not allowed to do this, when it starts being allowed to tremor, it depends on everybody. But at the beginning, especially since we're a group, I'm not there, whatever, we're going to go slowly. So yeah, just like allowing the tremor to come a little bit, taking a break and allowing the body to fully come back to rest. And then coming back into it will bring that sense of safety into the nervous system. Then for the dosing, how much you do, today we'll see, and I'm going to invite everybody to really listen to themselves, listen to their own intuition and their body. And if there's ever any doubt, like, maybe this is too much, then that's the invitation to stop, take a break, and maybe even just stop for the rest of the time. So there's no minimum amount of time that we need to tremor today. Some people are able to tremor 20 minutes on the first session and they feel great after. Some people are only able to tremor for a minute. It's the same as the SSP. So I think most people here have probably a good sense of their own system, their own bodies. So it's going to be really about listening to yourself. And the same as the SSP, the way we can tell how this is working for us is not necessarily only how we're feeling during the session, but how do we feel between sessions? So after this session, like say you do 20 minutes of tremoring today, and tomorrow you're like, oh my God, I slept amazing last night and like I'm feeling great, then that was a good amount for you, right? But if you're like, oh, I'm feeling more sugared than usual or whatever, then you just reduce it for the next time. And I'll give you at the end of the session, I'll give you some guidelines for practicing.